All right, today we're going to talk about how Black America saved Cadillac. I heard this crazy story from Isaac Hayes III, number 3, the son of the great legend Isaac Hayes. If you don't know who Isaac Hayes, go back, watch Shaft, listen to the Shaft, because to me, Shaft, the soundtrack, is the soundtrack for Black people everywhere. What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, listen, man. It's funny that we're talking about Cadillac and Isaac Hayes because I got a whole, I just recently went to Memphis earlier this year, and I went to the museum out there. And first of all, Isaac Hayes, his father is an absolute legend, like you said.
Facts.
And when you read about that, the Shaft soundtrack is crazy because he was so much more than an artist. Like, I don't even calling him a producer was even kind of like low-key disrespectful. My man was like really composing. He was a composer.
Yes.
He was a composer. And he was also he's a South Park legend too. So he's an animated legend too.
We got a background. But before we get too far along in this, listen, you're watching the Black Wealth Rebel show. Excuse me. This show where Black money, it all collides. We talk about everything as it relates to Black wealth, and how we look at it is from a holistic standpoint. So it's money, it's health, it's politics, it's all the above. So Jimmy, what were you saying about your trip to Memphis?
No, so you realize just how talented his father was. But one of the things they have in the museum there, and it's the Stax Museum, by the way, for those who don't know Stax Records, go look up Stax. Matter of fact, they got a great documentary on Stax Records. I think it's on Max or one of them channels.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big things they have is like he had this Cadillac, and they actually have the Cadillac in the museum, which makes the story even more interesting than Isaac Hayes is bringing this up. But he had like a legendary Cadillac where everyone in the Black community around Memphis was like, damn, that's Isaac Hayes. Like he put a lot of money into it. It was one of one. So that's why it was interesting. You said this story about Cadillac came from Isaac Hayes. I'm like, damn, his father is who I think of now ever since going to that trip and seeing his Cadillac in the museum. So that's kind of interesting.
And it's funny, I keep thinking about that story of Isaac Hayes when he created the song Hold On, I'm Coming for Sam and Dave, but I'll come to that later. Let's jump into this.
I want you to look at this video about how the Black community, out of the Great Depression, single-handedly saved Cadillac and made it into the brand that it is today. Watch this.
That Black America saved Cadillac in 1934. Cadillac wouldn't even exist today had it not been for Black America in 1934, and I can tell you exactly how they did it. First, you have to understand Henry Ford had 3 car companies. First was a complete failure, sold the assets. He had a second car company which failed, and a man named Henry Leland bought it and turned it into Cadillac. And then Henry had a third company we know as Ford Motor Company. Henry didn't really do the work. He hired some brothers and then tried to cut the brothers out. Those brothers started a car company named Dodge. So I want you to understand how incestuous this is. So Henry Leland started Cadillac. GM bought it in 1919 from him. So now General Motors has it. It's one of the top luxury brands in America. But when the Great Depression hit in 1928, nobody had money, right? You don't have auto loans. They did not exist back then. So if you couldn't pay cash for a car, you weren't getting it, and banks failed, nobody had money. So Cadillac lost 85% of their sales in 5 years. They were literally in the board meeting to shut Cadillac down with their service manager, Nationwide, coming and goes, I think I can save the company. Like, whatever, how? He goes, we don't sell to anybody but white people. And Black Americans in the South that pay a white guy $300 cash over and above the price of the car sold.
Well, damn.
Drops. The elite, the judges, the attorneys, the entertainers, they're for it. And Cadillac's like, what do we got to lose? So in 1934, they opened it up, the first car company ever to have integrated sales. And Black Americans bought so many Cadillacs. In 1934, sales went up 70%. Now I want you to ask yourself, this is the Great Depression. Nobody has money, there's credit lines. How can Black Americans afford to save a luxury brand? Huh? How? They couldn't put their money in banks. And all the banks failed, all the white people lost their money. The law led to the consequences, kept Black America from being harmed by the Great Depression like everybody else, believe it or not. And I talked to a gentleman who said the only reason my granddad said he knew it was a Great Depression because he saw a white man peeping out of his trash. I was like, wow. But so, in doing this, it turned Cadillac around. Cadillac became the first auto manufacturer to hire Black Americans to the design and style team, not just the factory. So Cadillac became one of the first integrated brands, and a lot of times we have stereotypes about Black America loves Cadillacs. Now you know why. They take a damn pause.
I did not.
The middle and upper class Black community out of the Great Depression built Cadillac into the brand that it is. But we don't own Cadillac. Remember that.
Wow.
We don't own nothing.
You know,
That's the problem.
But what I will say is this real quick, Camari. Shout out to Isaac Hayes III.
Correct.
He was the founder at Fanbase, which I'm an investor in through our Black-owned investment company here in Philadelphia, IB Big, you know what I'm saying? So we do own that. So our investment club did invest in Fanbase. So salute to Isaac Hayes III, who's trying to build his own thing. But that was a great story. I didn't mean to cut you off, good brother. What did you going to say?
No. Listen, that's important, right? Because I've been meaning to invest in Fanbase. Y'all beat me to it. But that's just a reminder. I got to invest in Fanbase. Yes. And so for anybody else that's watching, I think we all should be investing in Fanbase because companies care about Black people, but we make all these social media companies cool and relevant. I mean, if you just look at Twitter, I mean, it was really Questlove and Erykah Badu and a few others that really gave Twitter its spark. And now look at what's happening. A racist is running it. So a man who hates DEI is running it. So I want to support Isaac Hayes with all of it.
Yeah, man. So, you know, that's the first thing before we get into the actual Cadillac story, man. And the first thing I want to start off this conversation with is I didn't know all that history, right? I knew that the car companies were incestuous, but I didn't realize it was that. Like that's an interesting something I do more research on to figure out just how that played out. Also, Henry Ford was a sharp and relentless. My man he was trying to rob folks, and he failed at several companies before he found one that. I mean, it's a lesson in that too, Camari. It's a lesson in that too, right? Your first thing may not succeed, but my man's name is still living today. I was just watching the Lions play, you know, in Ford Field, right? So his name is still ringing bells, right? In 2024. So it's a lesson in that too, man. But what's your overall thoughts about that video? It's a lot to unpack right there.
I want to say this real quick. I haven't done a lot of research on it, the fact check, because I do believe in fact checking. I did a light look up, and then I did see that there is some truth to the story. I'm really sensitive about journalism and media because people be out here straight lying, y'all, and they get on nerves. But I love the story. Black people always save America companies, and they never care about us. And this is just part for the course. And I'm trying to find GM's share price and what their market value is. Because that's a great correlation into that. So right now, GM is $58.53. It's up, please, 62% year to date. So we are recording this in November of 2024. So since the beginning of the year this year, it's up 62%. So if you put $1 into GM, it'll be worth $1.62. That's a great investment this year. Now we'll have to go back. We'll have to go back and look at it, but that says a lot. I mean, because GM is the biggest. Well, let me correct myself. I was about to say the biggest motor company in the world. I think Toyota still has that, but
they're up. He was almost out of here a couple of years ago,
right? Over the Great Recession.
Yep. So, I mean, listen, like you said, we don't own anything, man. But with that being said, I did know that. I mean, there is a crazy relationship between our community. I remember growing up, I wanted a Cadillac. And you talk about Superfly. I remember that was a big thing in the movie Superfly was the Cadillacs. As a matter of fact, they called them hogs. If you watch the movie back, you talk about the hogs. I got to get the hog. Like everything was about the caddy, man.
Now let's be clear.
Ronell had that hog out there, dog.
But there's two hogs because Lincolns will get classified as hogs too.
Hey,
and
listen, man.
Usually in our community, either you're a Lincoln person or a Cadillac person.
Hey,
I'm a Cadillac person. I used to own a Cadillac.
What you say now? It was what's the mom movie? Lincoln's better than the Cadillac. Forget about it. Donnie Brasco.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, forget about it. Nah, man, Cadillac was always superior in my opinion. Lincoln had them airbag problems all the time. Anyway, this is not a car show.
But there's a correlation there, and there's another podcast that you listen to that has a similar type story, but I'll come to that in a minute. If you look at it though, in urban culture, because urban culture is very much centered around blacks and Italians. The blacks usually own the caddies a lot of times. The Italians own the Lincolns a lot of times.
I just know that in our community, man, like, when my mom used to listen to the whispers and hear about Olivia being lost, it turned out Olivia was out here buying her man a Seville, man, which was a Cadillac, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Cadillac has been part of the black culture. And then remember this, right? Remember in the 90s when the Escalades dropped, the Escalades had us in a chokehold, right? Yep. It's like it kind of disappeared for a minute, and then the Escalades went out. Hip hop culture got infatuated with the caddy all over again.
I drive a caddy, you fixing a Ford. What do you mean going back to Run DMC, baby?
Listen, even beyond that, right? Cadillac Records, right? That's what they call the label.
Yes, Cadillac. Yes, I know.
And part of them signing on that when that record label was, you got to pick your caddy out, get your hog. So
right.
It's definitely had our community in a chokehold, but it's interesting to see the history behind it. I didn't know all this history. But that's why it's important to know your history. But I just knew that there was a relationship between that brand and our community since I was a kid. But to Isaac Hayes' point, another way of looking at it is there's a lot of relationships between certain brands, right? If I say Hennessy to you, there's a relationship between Hennessy and our community, but do we own that either, right?
Nope.
So all the brands that we have these strong, and there's certain brands that just have strong relationships to the point where when you talk to people outside of our culture and they don't have the relationship, sometimes I'm shocked. Because a lot of times when you grow up around something, you think that's like that for everybody.
Now, there's a podcast that both you and I both listen to. And I don't know if I'll put you on to it, but the black community has a special relationship with Pepsi. Remember that podcast?
Yeah, I'll put you down with that one. But yeah,
I don't know that, but that's fine. I'm cool with that.
It's on the record, dog. It's on the record. But anyway, man, but you're right. Pepsi is another one.
Right.
Listen,
and that was because they used the black community to try to beat Coca-Cola. And so again, we always get pimped out somehow, and it's crazy. It's very nerve-wracking.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Capitalism dictates that somebody's going to get pimped out, right? So we're a market. I'm not arguing, but I'm just saying this is true. This is business, right? So we are in fact a market that can be marketed to, right? And if I'm looking to pick up share, I'm getting dominated over here, and I'm not really, doing business here, and it's wide open. It just makes sense to do so. But there are a number of brands that way, right? Newports. Man, when I was a kid, and I get sent to the store, whether it was auntie or a lady on the block. Matter of fact, it was a combination of both. A bottle of
that's
Pepsi.
Illegal now, folks.
Listen, old ladies on my block.
And sometimes a bag of peanuts.
Listen, dog. Old ladies on my block say, "Yo, go around the corner to the." I ain't gonna tell you what they call the store because it's inappropriate to say it. But they say that the Asian community owned the store, and there were nicknames for those stores. They would send me to the store.
Did it start with a letter C?
That was one of them. It was either C or Y. It's either one of them.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so they would send me to those stores, and I would walk for them because I'm like, yo, you're gonna give me $1, walk to the store for me. You know what I'm saying? It would be a bottle of Pepsi, a pack of Newports, and whatever their number was.
And sometimes a newspaper.
50 cents straight, 50-cent box.
And they were getting out to get a newspaper because they look at the newspaper. They get.
And I think about it. I think about it now. Like, damn, I was a little kid, and they were selling me cigarettes and letting me play numbers for people on the block. Like, it was a different time, man. But yeah, man. So we have good relationships, man, with these brands, and it's been going on forever.
Now, but what I do hope, right? We see these things, and we start to say, all right, it's time for us to wake up and become conscious consumers, because what happens a lot of times. Hennessy, Adidas is another one. Nike's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, Puma a little bit, right? They have these special relationships with the black community, but they don't really care about us. Not like that. Not like that. I mean, you kind of saw that even with Nike, right? They played both sides of the fence. They had Kaepernick on one side they're supporting, and on the other side they're supporting the NFL. But it's business, so I get it. No shade.
That's capitalism, like, you know.
Well, that's not capitalism. That's just the world, right? Even there's all people always try to say this about capitalism. It drives me crazy, right?
I know
There's always, I know, but it's always going to be a lower rung. We want to romanticize this idea of equality. It doesn't exist. It's never existed. It will never exist unless we become like the Star Trek era. And people might even forget about Star Trek, but I don't think that has ever existed. Show me one society before capitalism that had this utopian type feel.
So what I mean by that is like it just dictates that money has to flow and be put to work, right? And you gotta find customers. At the end of the day, you gotta find customers. So that's what I mean by saying that it's par for the course, right? Money has to. What my man say in the wire, money be green, yo. Like money has to flow, you know. But this is what it is, man. We got to figure out ways to kind of like own some of these brands, but that becomes difficult too when you don't have the capital to put into these brands, right? We don't own capital either. You know, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, the four agents of production. What do we own? We own our labor. That's all we own.
We don't even own our labor though, but I get your point though, because it's our bodies. I got you. But a lot of times there's so many more things that we could do, because by really owning our labor, we will be maximizing our skills.
So here's the thing.
And a lot of times we don't.
In economics, the four agents of production are land, labor, capital. No, hear me out though. What I'm saying is a lot of times we only concern ourselves with labor. And shout out to Courtney. Courtney once said this before, so it's her bar. She said we fall in love. We fall in love with our labor too much, to the point where we don't even look at the other agents of production, right? So
I don't disagree with that.
So yeah, so that's the other part of this. So we have to figure out how to kind of control or get involved with the other agents of production, which then goes out this way, and then we can start to have these brands that'll be around that we have relationships with. But the other part about this is, and it's something that we're going to do with the Black Wealth Rebels, is start to create the relationships with brands that are owned by us, right? So when you have brands out there that do good work, we got to make sure we support them, such as a Fanbase, such as I just purchased something from Actively Black, which is a Black-owned higher-end clothing company, right? We got to make sure that we build relationships with these companies and continuously support them. So that's the other part of this story.
But so I brought up a point a minute ago about being a conscious consumer.
Yes.
So while we don't own land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, for the most part, right? We're speaking broadly.
Yes.
We can direct our dollars, and we don't take that serious enough. Like every dollar that we spend is a bullet, in my opinion, and it's a bullet for our freedom. And when we spend that money with people who don't care about us, basically that hate on us, that want to spit and piss on us, it's a dollar given away. It's a bullet given away. And so I think we can always be agents for our own success and our own, what's the word there? Our own agency, right? We can always fight for our own agency, but we got to be conscious. We got to be conscious about that.
That's an excellent point, but we have to first understand the power of a dollar, not to, quote Curtis Jackson and whatnot, but the power of a dollar is important to understand because, again, going back to me dealing in real estate, right? Is why I always try to hire people to look like me. I got a rehab project going on now. It's a, shout out to my Jamaican American contractor who's put it together for me. And I was telling him, right, when you give me a quote on the price, I'm not going to argue with you. Either I'm going to use my money with you or I'm not. But because I understand that when I pay someone, like you said, that's my power. You called it a bullet. I like the term of a bullet. That's kind of dope. But it's my power. It's my vote, right? Another way I vote is with my money. So when I'm giving you my hard-earned time and energy, what is what money is, I'm giving you, a vote of either I'm going to, support you or not support you. So I think that we have to first understand the power of our money. And it's difficult to understand the power of your money when we're caught up in this system where we're trapped every day just trying to get by, to quote Talib Kweli. Right. So, you know, we have to figure out and have more dialogue like this about Black wealth and Black culture. That's just not about getting to the bag, but understanding the value of whatever bag it is you do have. Right. I know you're already looking for a book, bro, but I know you're trying to find whatever book you're trying to find. So I want to see where you're going with this.
This right here, Our Black Year.
Oh yeah,
Maggie Anderson.
Maggie
Right.
Anderson. I got that.
Right. And so and I've actually interviewed Maggie several times. Maggie is a sister out of Chicago, originally by way of Miami, but she wrote a book about her and her family's journey to support Black business intentionally for 1 year. And it was really hard for her. And all these people got online and said she was a racist, and because she was intentionally wanting to spend money with her community. Quick factoid. Black businesses are more likely to employ Black people than any other sector of business. So it only makes sense to buy from Black businesses because, you know, you're helping to support and create other Black jobs, you know, the infamous Black jobs that people have been talking about. So, you know, I would encourage everybody to get Our Black Year. And it seems like every episode we do, Jimmy, we're talking about books. So I guess we definitely have to get our book club popping at some point. Let me know if y'all watching, if y'all want to see a book club. Because also remember, we have a whole Patreon section that you can join for free.
Absolutely.
And we've been thinking about doing a book club. So I guess we got to do that sooner or later.
Listen, make sure you visit blackwealthrebels.com and sign up for the Patreon. We have a free tier, the paid tier does give access to some of our classes, our weekly classes and things of that nature. But I do want to add this too, right? It's interesting how you said people were calling her racist and because when I worked in financial services, a lot of the people that I worked around were Vietnamese, and I had a lot of conversations with them. And I've told you this before, like how they would support each other, but it was so like second nature to them. But no one ever called them a hater. Like when they would literally, like I remember he told me how one guy told me that he would travel past 5 banks to get to his Vietnamese bank, right? He would go past so many stores to go to a Vietnamese restaurant or any sort of clothing, whatever it may be. Like it wasn't about convenience because it was ingrained in him since a child to support Vietnamese businesses. But no one ever thought to call him out on that. I thought it was honorable to me. I was inspired by it, but somehow we get called racist. That's kind of it's wild to me. That's really wild to me.
Well, it's funny. So another brother of mine that's in Philly, his name's Fred. Jimmy, you might remember this. Kimi oil was really popular in the Philadelphia area for a long time. It was the oil they put in the hair. Well, Fred was one of the main distributors in the United States. And Fred always shares a story, and I'm sure he doesn't have a problem saying this because we've done radio together. And he's talked about this, but he said the owners of Kimi oil were, I believe, Korean or Chinese. They were from Asia somehow, some kind of way. He said when they would go to eat, they would go past 1,000,001 restaurants and drive 5-10 miles to go to, I want to say it was a Chinese restaurant because it was their people. And it was important for them to spend money with their people. But you know who else does that?
I do.
Jewish. You do. I do. But no, facts. Right. Got to give you the horns for that. But the Jewish community does that. And what's really interesting about the Jewish community is they kind of set up their whole communities around that. So
man.
During the week,
Another good book called The Jewish Phenomenon. You know,
I don't think I've read that one.
You got to get on that one. You know,
okay.
That's a classic. But that's kind of what it's about, is how everything around them is surrounded around supporting their business and their culture. So
right, but I mean, you can see it physically, right? If you ever drive to a Jewish community from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they walk the neighborhood, and you know they have certain times where they have to turn off the phones and all of that. What's the word I'm looking for, Jimmy? Save me, Jimmy.
I don't know where you are.
The Sabbath.
Oh, the Sabbath. My bad.
Yes. So when they celebrate the Sabbath, they're also intentionally going to Jewish-owned stores in the area and making sure they're circulating that money in the area. Another quick factoid. We can't tell how many hours a Black dollar stays in the Black community, but I'm going to leave that alone.
Listen, man, I support. I try to support as much as I can, man. And every time every once a month when I celebrate Illmatic, I make sure I only spend with our people, man. That's my holy book. So it is what it is.
There you go. There you go. Well, this is another episode of the Black Ball Rebel Show. We thank you all for everybody who's here. In the comment section, tell us, how do you support Black business? Do you have a favorite Black business? Put it in the comment section, and also let us know what the name of the business in the city it's from. But
And also,
until next time, go ahead,
I got
Jimmy.
real quick before you sign us out. I also want to get an idea of, in your neighborhood, your community, wherever you may be from, what other brands have us in the chokehold, kind of how Cadillac, Hennessy, Newport, that you see, because it might be a regional thing too. So I'm interested to see what other brands people can name that have us in the chokehold as a community.
All righty. Well, until the next time, stay tuned to the Black Wolf Rebel Show. If you got value from this, make sure you like this, share it out with somebody, and subscribe to the channel.